On Global TV News Express, troops thwart mass abduction of NYC members in Borno State. In business, federal government holds 15% import duty on petrol and diesel. On the foreign scene, South Africa president describes United States absence from G20 a loss to Washington. And in sport, Super Eagles face Gabon in crucial World Cup playoffs this evening. Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Express on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Mukhtar Qasim. A quick reminder, Global Television is on DSTV, channel 365, and on StarTimes, channel 276. And now, the news in details. Troops of Operation Hatankai have rescued 74 National Youth Service Corps members from a possible abduction by Boko Haram and ISWAP terrorists along the Buratai-Kumoya Road in Borno State. The media information officer of the task force, Sani Uba, stated this in a statement. The operation was launched after CCTV monitoring the area detected suspicious movement involving 3 stranded buses at a known kidnapping hotspot late Tuesday night. The 36 male and 38 female corps members were evacuated to the Buratai military base for safety, while arrangements are being made for their onward movement. In the meantime, the Senate leader, Senator Okwemi Bamidele, has dismissed report of an alleged attempt to remove Senate President Godswill Akpabio, calling them misleading and designed to create unnecessary tension within the National Assembly. Senate correspondent Topsy Gimba has the details.
Speaking, jury plenary, Senator Bamidele clarified that no discussions or plans have taken place among senators regarding Akpabio's removal. He emphasized that the Senate remains united and focused on pressing national matters rather than being distracted by false claims. The clarification came in response to remarks by Senator Oji Ozukalu of Abia North, who had recently referenced previous unsuccessful attempts to impeach the Senate president. Bamidele reaffirmed that there is no intention within the Senate to consider the removal of any of its leadership members, underlining the chamber's cohesion and focus on governance.
He eventually returned the call, and from my discussions with Senator Oji Uzokalu, it was obvious to me that it was quoted out of context. And the reason I'm standing up to make this clarification is that there was no attempt by any of our colleagues here. There was in fact no discussion around the possibility or otherwise of the removal of His Excellency Distinguished Senator Godswill Akpabio as President of the Senate. And we are not taking this misinformation for granted, because we know that at this time, it's not only that we are all united behind the leadership of His Excellency Senator Godswill Akpabio as President of the Senate, we are also developing a zero level of tolerance.
Topsy Gimba reporting for Global Television News.
Lawmakers in the House of Representatives have debated 2 major motions, one on abandoned federal assets worth trillions of naira, and another on the near collapse of Nigeria's once booming rice industry. The lawmakers are raising alarms over what they describe as a monumental economic waste of over 11,800 federal government buildings and landed properties across the country, valued at more than 20 trillion naira. National Assembly correspondent Aniete Patrick reports.
The motion, sponsored by Minority Leader Kingsley Chinda, pointed to a report by the Nigerian Institute of Quality Surveyors, which found that nearly 63% of federal building projects initiated since independence remain incomplete or deserted. Among the abandoned projects cited are the Federal Secretariat in Ikoyi, the Millennium Tower and National Library in Abuja, and the Kaduna Textile Building, among others.
The House is most humbly urged to set up a special ad hoc committee of the House to review the PIC report conducted in year 2000 as well as verify reports of other properties abandoned since year 2000 in order to identify the state of these properties and report infractions, determine and make recommendations for final resolution.
Lawmakers blame bureaucratic delays and lack of transparency, noting that a committee set up in 2000 to account for government properties has yet to submit its report 25 years later. After debate, the House resolved to set up a special ad hoc committee to verify the status of the properties and review the 2000 Presidential Implementation Committee reports within 6 weeks. In another motion, the House also turned its attention to the collapse of local rice farming and milling, warning that recent import waivers and smuggling are threatening food security and livelihoods. Mohammed Jajere, who sponsored the motion, said the 180-day duty waiver for imported rice has crippled demand for locally produced brands, forcing many mills to shut down. He added that inconsistent policies have discouraged farmers and reversed the gains made under previous administrations.
That frequent changes in government policies have disrupted the agricultural production value chain, making it challenging for farmers to plan for the future. Concerned that if this is not addressed appropriately, the country may be losing billions of naira due to the closure of most of these rice mills.
The House has directed its Committee on Agricultural Production and Services to investigate the matter and report back within 4 weeks. As the probe commences, Nigerians will be watching to see whether these investigations finally translate into accountability and revival of key national assets. From the National Assembly, Aniye Patrick, reporting for Global TV News.
In the meantime, Nigeria's border security challenges are back in focus as the Minister of Interior calls for an urgent review of the Immigration Act to strengthen the nation's frontiers. At the inauguration of a House of Representatives ad hoc committee on border security, stakeholders painted a worrying picture of porous border and overstretched agencies. Again, National Assembly correspondent Aniye Patrick reports.
The call for tighter border control came from the Minister of Interior, Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, represented by the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Magdalene Ajani, who said the Immigration Act of 2015 no longer meets the realities of modern border threats. He said Nigeria must close security gaps caused by limited personnel, inadequate funding, poor infrastructure, and outdated technology.
There is need for us to develop a national policy on border security that clearly defines the roles of every relevant agency at the border. There is need to create a consistent funding framework for border security.
The Controller General of the Nigerian Immigration Service, Kemi Nanda, told lawmakers that officers are struggling to monitor more than 4,000 kilometers of illegal routes. Military intelligence also raised the alarm as the Chief of Military Intelligence, Major General Aliyu Idris, cited manpower shortages, poor equipment, and judicial bottlenecks as key obstacles to securing Nigerians' borders.
Recommend enhanced surveillance technology, focus on Sahel, and resource allocation, adequate resources and personnel.
Speaking on behalf of the Speaker of the House, Minority Whip Ali Issa said the National Assembly is determined to address the lapses that have made Nigeria's borders gateways for smuggling and irregular migration.
The goal is to identify vulnerabilities, operational shortcomings, and even compromise border officials. You must review how money is allocated to relevant agencies to protect our borders are spent.
Committee Chairman Mohammed Anka assured that the ad hoc committee will develop practical strategies that promote regional cooperation and community engagement to curb cross-border crimes.
It is alarming, that despite significant government expenditure over the past years, we are yet to attain commensurable gains in our security landscape.
With insecurity and economic sabotage linked to porous borders, the push for legislative and institutional reform could mark a turning point for Nigeria's border management system. From the National Assembly, Aniye Patrick, reporting for Global TV News.
And now to the health sector, where the Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Muhammad Ali Pate, has reaffirmed his commitment to strengthening healthcare system in the country, which will be achieved by advancing localization agenda of the health sector. The minister stated this when he declared open the Joint Annual Review 2025 here in Abuja. Zara'u Nasir reports.
The Joint Annual Review brought together stakeholders in the health sector, medical experts, and professionals with development partners, traditional and religious leaders who gathered to discuss progresses, share experiences, and analyze shortcomings to strengthen Nigeria's health system. The Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Muhammad Ali Pate, says the Joint Annual Review provides platform for health sector stakeholders to access health and provide solutions in reshaping health care delivery across the nation.
Bringing Nigeria's health sector to life captures both our collective aspiration and our shared responsibility. The All Hands One Mission theme emphasizes our unity of purpose across all stakeholders: government, national, federal, states, local government partners, private sector, communities, civil society organizations, and our citizens, and the strengthening of our collaboration in that effort. In a mixed health system such as ours,
the Chairman Health Sector Coalition, Dr. Muhammad Lekki, says stakeholders should not only be celebrating budget increases in health sector, but should be able to find a way to get Ministry of Finance to release funds to the health sector and make utilization.
We must find creative ways, work with the civil society organization, to get the Federal Ministry of Finance, thank you, Minister of Finance, welcome here, to get the Federal Ministry of Finance to release funds to the health sector as appropriated. We must not be celebrating increases in budget on papers alone, but releases and utilization.
The event under the theme All Hands One Mission was attended by the Ministers of Finance, Budget, representatives of the Nigeria Governors Forum, and also the country director of the World Bank, among other dignitaries. Zara'u Nasir, reporting for Global TV News.
You are watching the live broadcast of News Express. When News Express returns, Nigeria, Gabon in crucial World Cup playoff showdown this evening. Details coming shortly, plus business and foreign stories. On the other side of this break, please stay with us. Welcome back from that break, and now to business news, where the federal government has suspended the 15% proposed percentage ad valorem import duty earlier approved on premium motor spirit and diesel imports. The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority confirmed the suspension today, Thursday, assuring that the policy was no longer in view. The authority also reassured Nigerians of adequate fuel supply nationwide, noting that current reserves remain within the acceptable national sufficiency threshold despite peak demand. Still talking business, the Senate has approved President Bola Tinubu's request to raise 1.15 trillion naira from the domestic debt market to finance the unfunded portion of the 2025 budget deficit. Topsy Gimba has the details.
The approval came after the Senate adopted a report from the Committee on Local and Foreign Debt during plenary session. The report highlighted that the 2025 Appropriation Act sets total expenditure at nearly 60 trillion naira, an increase of 5.25 trillion over the initially proposed 54.74 trillion naira. This budget expansion resulted in a deficit of 14.10 trillion naira. Of this, 12.95 trillion naira has already been approved for borrowing, leaving an unfunded gap of approximately 1.15 trillion naira, which the Senate has now authorized to be raised domestically.
Recommendation 1, that the Senate do approve Mr. President's request to establish a 1,150 billion naira borrowing program in the domestic debt market to close the unfunded deficit gap created by the increase in the budget size. over and above the prior approved revenue and borrowing plans. Those in favor of these recommendations say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
In another move, the Senate adopted a motion by Senator Abdul Ningi mandating the Committee on Appropriations to intensify oversight over the implementation of borrowed funds. He said the committee is tasked to ensure that the money is used effectively within the 25 fiscal year and strictly for the intended purposes.
That the Committee of Appropriation should ensure that the borrowing is actually made for the purpose of which is required before the Senate. That the borrowing, the Appropriation Committee should ensure that the borrowing is made for the purposes of which that the Appropriation Committee should ensure that the borrowing is actually to fund the 2025 appropriation.
This decisive legislative action underscores the Senate's commitment to fiscal responsibility and transparency as Nigeria navigates its 2025 budgetary challenges. Topsy Gimba, reporting for Global Television News.
The House of Representatives is taking a hard look at the oil and gas companies accused of shortchanging their host communities. Lawmakers say the firms have failed to remit the mandatory 3% of their annual operating expenditure as required by the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021. National Assembly correspondent Aniete Patrick reports.
When G20 leaders touched down in Johannesburg this month,
a major cleanup is underway in South Africa's economic capital of Johannesburg as it gets ready to host the G20 summit on November 22nd and 23, with leaders of the world attending. The makeover is getting reactions from the residents of the sprawling city dealing with what has been described crumbling infrastructure and chronic mismanagement. Uyi Agwonfuegbe has the rest of the story.
When G20 leaders touch down in Johannesburg this month, they will be greeted by a city scrubbed, patched, and polished, all parts of a last-minute summit gloss thrown over years of neglect. The urban sprawl of almost 6 million people is home to Africa's richest square mile. In recent years, however, it has sunk into disrepair with open sewers, potholed roads, and crowded shacks of corrugated iron lining its frayed edges. Against this backdrop, these South Africans have deep-seated reservations about the exercise.
We don't even worry about this G20. We know it's very important, they must come, but we are worried about after. What is going to be happening after, you know. They cannot even fix Mandela Bridge.
Mayor of Johannesburg, Dada Moreno, believes the cleanup initiative is long overdue, calling for support to ensure its success.
Today I stand before you with a simple but urgent message that the time to restore Johannesburg's glory has arrived, and we are doing it together. For years our city has carried the weight of urban decay, service delivery backlogs, and eroded public trust. But Johannesburg is too important.
President Cyril Ramaphosa, dismayed by the decay, had called the city's state not pleasant and ordered a cleanup to spare Africa's industry powerhouse global embarrassment. Uyi Agwonfuegbe, reporting for Global TV News.
In the meantime, President Cyril Ramaphosa says the United States boycott of the G20 summit in South Africa later this month would not prevent the meeting of the world leading economies from going ahead. Pretoria and Washington have clashed over a range of policy issues, including South Africa's summit agenda, culminating in President Donald Trump announcing that no United States official will attend the Johannesburg gathering. Zara Unasir has the details.
Ramaphosa told reporters in the coastal city of Cape Town that South Africa will take fundamental decisions, affirming that the United States stands to lose if it decides to boycott the summit. He noted that, in many ways, the United States is also giving up the very important role that it should be playing as the biggest economy in the world.
The United States is also giving up very important role that they should be playing as the biggest economy.
Set to hold between November 22nd and 23rd, the summit marks the first time the G20 will convene on African soil. South Africa, current G20 chair, wants to use its presidency to champion global South priorities, including boosting climate resilience and tackling debt in developing countries, before handing the baton to the United States next year. Zahra Unasir, reporting for Global TV News.
And now to the exciting world of sport, where the Super Eagles of Nigeria will take on Gabon's Panthers in Rabat, Morocco this evening in a decisive CAF playoff for the 2026 FIFA World Cup Interconfederation sport. Nigeria advanced to this stage as one of the Africa's best runner-ups, boosted by a 4-0 win over Benin Republic that included a Victor Osimhen's hat-trick. The match is scheduled to take place at 5 p.m. Nigerian time, with the winners facing either Cameroon or DR Congo on November 16 for a place in the global playoff rounds that could secure a World Cup ticket. In the meantime, the Nigerian College of Football Federation Association is making waves in grassroots flag football development as it flags off its participation at the NUGA Games 2025 in the University of Jos. The federation has already struck gold, clinching top honors in flag football events internationally, and now setting its sights on the upcoming secondary school championship finals in Abuja. Samuel Odi reports for Global Television.
18 state champions, male and female, are going to gear up for what promises to be an explosive flag football showdown as the Nigerian College and Football Federation Association stages its finals in Abuja. The event, scheduled to hold from the 18th to the 22nd of November 2025, will bring together the best teams from across the country. It was a moment of pride and progress for Nigerian College and Football Federation Association as its football team participated at the 27th edition of NUGA Games in Jos. Beyond the celebration, Oluwatobi Ade says this stands as a testament to the growing impact of grassroots flag football initiatives championed by the Nigerian Amateur Football Association, NAFA.
A lot of people have this misconception, is it rugby, is it volleyball, but we've successfully gone about spreading the gospel of American football, flag football, to let them know this is a different sport, not used to, something different from what they've been seeing. And over the years, since inception, we've been able to, establish a lot of initiatives and flagship programs for flag football that has really helped us to spread the word of what we've been doing. Now,
as Abuja gets set to host the final championship games of NAFA, the event promises to bring together the nation's best flag football teams for what promises to be a thrilling climax to the season. Samuel Odi for Global Television News.
As Global TV News Express comes to an end, here is a recap of our top stories. On Global TV News Express, we brought to you that troops of Operation Haɗin-kai have rescued 74 National Youth Service Corps members from a possible abduction by Boko Haram and ISWAP terrorists in Borno State. In business, the federal government has suspended the proposed 15% ad valorem import duty earlier approved on premium motor spirit and diesel import. On the foreign scene, President Cyril Ramaphosa says the United States boycott of the G20 summit in South Africa later this month would not prevent the meeting of world leaders from going ahead. And in sport, the Super Eagles of Nigeria will take on Gabon's Panthers in Rabat, Morocco this evening in a decisive CAF playoff for a place at the 2026 World Cup. That's it on News Express. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and on Star Times channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen using Global TV NG. I am Mukhtar Kasim, saying a very big thank you for watching.